Good afternoon, everyone. We're just wait a couple minutes until you get settled in for this afternoon's webinar. Thank you so much for being here. You can see the numbers climbing. Every time we have a webinar about food, we always get a lot of interest in it. So this one's no surprise to see those numbers climbing. Thank you so much for being here with us today, for spending the next hour with us as we talk about the resident voice survey that OARC conducted last year. This webinar is entitled Elevating the Resident Voice, and we'll be sharing insights from OARC's Food Services Survey. We can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so please join me in a land acknowledgement. Together, let us now pause as we acknowledge the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today, from wherever we are virtually participating in today's meeting. Let us take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the land we each call home. We do this to affirm our commitment and responsibility to improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. We acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people who call this nation home. We also acknowledge the enduring presence, knowledge, and stewardship of Indigenous peoples on this land and recognize the deep connections between land, culture, and traditional food practices that continue to nourish communities today. We know in many Indigenous cultures, sharing a meal can be considered an act of ceremony. And we could continue to remember and recognize that food and sharing meals is an important part of many cultures, but super important within many Indigenous communities. Thank you. So for this afternoon, as always, we have the chat box is going to be disabled for this one, but the question and answer box is open. And we invite you to put your questions in the Q&A box throughout the presentation, and we hope to get to as many as we can. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared with all participants and also available on OARC's website. And we always invite you to please fill out the evaluation that will pop up automatically when you close out of Zoom. Your feedback and suggestions are so appreciated.
Before you go on, Stephanie, somebody put in a comment that it's quite a bad echo.
Oh, okay. We'll see if we can fix that. Thank you. Thanks, Anne. Mm-hmm. All right, so this afternoon I'll be turning it over to Melissa McVie in just a moment. Melissa is OARC's Acting Executive Director and also Director of Communications, and someone who's super passionate about food services in long-term care. Melissa will be joined by several residents who are also directors on OARC's board and members of OARC's Provincial Advisory Group, the Resident Expert Advisors and Leaders, or REAL Group. On the screen, you'll see Jennifer from Toronto, Anne also from Toronto, Gail from Ottawa, and Laverne joining from Brockville. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. And Melissa, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. It's a privilege to be here and to be co-presenting with our resident experts. So for those who may not be familiar with the Ontario Association of Resident Councils, also known by our acronym as OARC for short, we thought we spend a few moments just giving a little bit of information about who we are, what we do, and hopefully, if you didn't know about us, you'll know more and connect with us moving forward. So our organization is a not-for-profit that was formed by a small group of residents and resident councils back in 1981. And this group of determined residents wanted to create a unified network of resident councils. So to come together, strengthen numbers. And if you were to fast forward 45 years, we continue to have residents at the helm. Residents are actively involved in all aspects of OARC's governance and operations. We receive our funding primarily through our partners at the Ministry of Long-Term Care, but we are also supported and very grateful for the support that we receive through OARC membership. So the resident council at your home might be a member, or perhaps your organization is supporting resident councils to be members of our organization. We also receive generous support through our sponsorship or Confidence and Culture Change supporter program. And to our knowledge, we are the only organization, I think nationally, that has such a unique mandate in that we are funded by our ministry to help residents to create and sustain effective resident councils and that are mandated to exist in every home. We help to foster meaningful engagement, so empowering residents with information so that they can be actively involved in their own home operations and decision making. We also want to ensure that resident voices and priorities are heard and elevated where we can through the various tables that OARC sits on, and really that conduit between resident voices and our government and decision makers. Now, at this time, I'd like to invite Gail to share, to share a little bit of context about why we're talking about food today. Why is food quality and meal times, why are they so important to residents from a resident perspective?
Thanks, Melissa. I think we all know that next to care, the most important thing to residents is the food that we eat and the dining room that we sit in and socialize in. Food brings us together, and it sustains us, and of course, it maintains health and all that sort of stuff. So for us, it was really important to find out from everyone across the province how they were feeling about the food in their home, the quality of the food, how the meal times were working for you, what the ambiance in your dining rooms was like, that kind of stuff. And to find out more importantly, or as importantly, of what was working is what's not working. So the survey is our way of touching, creating a touch point to identify where there are areas that require improvement. And yeah, that's why we embarked on the survey.
Perfect. Thanks, Gail. So by way of background, the Ontario Association of Resident Councils work with another group with another long acronym, the Ontario Seniors Nutrition and Advocacy Committee. And this is a group of volunteer professionals that's largely made up of dietitians and food services managers. And we've been working with them for a number of years now. You'll likely recall hearing guest registered dietitians deliver education for residents through our OARC webinar series for Nutrition Month. So this relationship has spanned a number of years, and we wanted to continue to build on our joint advocacy. As it turned out, the OSNAC group was launching their own survey. They wanted to tap into long-term care home management experiences. How were they managing with food budgets? What were the needs? And so at the same time, the OSNAC group reached out to OARC to say it would be wonderful if we could work together to create a resident-facing survey. So we could have complementary data, home level data, but also having resident voices bring the experiences to life. And of course, we wanted to capture this data to support advocacy. So we knew that was going to be a powerful opportunity. So what did we do? We welcomed this opportunity. We formed a resident working group with all of the residents on the screen today, plus another 7 or 8 residents. And we worked together over the span of several weeks to really fine tune and to come up with a 19-question survey, and which our resident leaders were able to pilot, and we kept fine tuning the language. We decided that we wanted to narrow the responses. So we weren't offering too many, like a whole spectrum of responses. We wanted residents to be able to simply say yes, no to the questions we were posing. And of course, we wanted additional feedback. So there were sections on each questionnaire for residents to provide that important context and to provide their comments. So the purpose, as you heard, the purpose of the survey, Gail mentioned, it's an opportunity for residents to share directly with OARC. We wanted to identify those strengths, what's working well, the challenges, and also those opportunities. We wanted to be able to use the data to inform advocacy, policy and practice changes, but also to maybe shine some light on promising practices. Maybe there are really great things happening in certain homes that could be spread and scaled through our education and OARC communications. And then primarily our goal was to ensure that resident voices were guiding quality improvements moving forward. So the survey was launched last September. So I'm hoping that many on the call today know about this survey, because we did commit. It was really important to us not only just to ask for your feedback, but we are committed to showcasing back what we heard, and it will be an ongoing journey to show you what we're doing about it. So it's not a survey that's the data is collecting dust. So the survey was launched last fall. It ran from September through about mid-November. And thanks to resident feedback, we made the decision to offer the survey in different formats. Some residents like to do an online survey through SurveyMonkey. Others prefer a paper approach. So we had a print version of the survey as well, and those could be mailed back to OARC or scanned back. Residents could complete the survey on their own, or if they wanted to, they could ask a trusted team member, a volunteer, or a family or friend to help complete the survey. So we did ask them to let us know how they filled it out. And then our survey was communicated over a series of weeks through OARC communications, word of mouth, when our team members were traveling and visiting with resident councils, but also through our partner organizations, so that long-term care home management knew about it and could help spread the word. So I know we shared through our communications very enthusiastically that we were thrilled to receive 1,397 survey responses, which we've rounded up to 1,400 resident responses on this slide. And we were really encouraged by the broad geographic representation from which these surveys came from. So Laverne, could I ask you to maybe share why that was important to us?
Well, it's most important that we include all Ontario residents, everyone who lives in a long-term care home. The same we have is on our form. We encourage all participants. It doesn't matter where you are, as long as you're in a long-term care home. And the most important is it gives you a better idea on where the problems are and a better idea how the survey is managed. And I thank you for putting it across Ontario, because
Yes,
it's a more basis for a more judgment of a practical way of making sure everyone is included.
Thanks, Laverne. Yes, that was really important to us. And there really was good representation proportionally from each of those Ontario's health regions. So just to give you a flavor, and expect many food-related puns today through today's presentation from me and others, but we couldn't resist that. So just to give you a flavor or refresher of what survey topics, and you heard a few from Gail earlier, We wanted to know about resident satisfaction with meals and snacks, and we did intentionally separate them. We wanted to know about perceptions of quality. How do residents feel about the variety being offered? We also wanted, we had questions covering different aspects of the mealtime experience. So temperatures, meal pacing, was help available if residents wanted it? Did residents feel that the menus were meeting their personal needs and preferences? And we know that menus are reviewed for nutritional, to make sure they're nutritionally sound, but we wanted to know from a resident perspective if they felt that was the case. We also wanted to really learn about how team members and residents were interacting during meal times. We know that human connection is so important to how we experience meals. We also, of course, wanted to hear resident feedback. There's lots of advocacy around or lots of support for increasing resources to support staffing and increased budget. So we wanted to hear what residents felt on those areas. And then, of course, being the Ontario Association of Resident Councils, we wanted to hear directly from residents how much they felt that their resident council could influence changes in their home. So we were pleasantly surprised that at first glance, the survey responses were quite positive in nature. Now, we couldn't, with the time of our webinar today, we couldn't go through in detail every single question, but we did pull out some of the top scoring areas that at that first glance seemed positive. So 77% of residents who completed the survey said that they were satisfied with the snack quality. 67% of those residents completing the survey reported satisfaction with meal quality. 71% of residents would recommend their home's dining experience, and 71% were satisfied with meal variety. So that's kind of at that first glance. It was important for us to note here, though, when we started looking at the data, and we did separate the data by 3 respondent groups. So residents who completed the survey on their own, and residents who completed a survey with assistance, either by a team member or a family or friend. And it was important to point out that residents who completed surveys on their own did tend to rate their personal satisfaction across all these areas about 7 to 10% lower than those who were assisted. So there could be a number of contributing factors why that was the case, but we felt it was to be transparent that there were some differences depending on those respondent groups. But on the whole, what we did hear loud and clear is that residents appreciate their team members, and they see how hard homes are working to try to address the challenges that exist. They're also appreciative of the constraints that team members are working within. So there's still lots of work to be done, but there were comments throughout the survey like the ones we pulled out on this slide. Staff are doing their best. Dietary staff are helpful. They try to accommodate. There are some residents who did feel that there was adequate variety. They saw the menus acceptable. I enjoy most meals. And then some of we're going to talk a little bit about consistency on the coming slides, but there were a lot of comments that said, oh, it depends on the day, generally okay. So just kind of acceptance of the status quo there. Now, Gail, is there anything that you wanted to mention on this particular slide, or anyone else? Or we can jump ahead to any thoughts or reactions to this initial kind of first impression?
Yeah, I think that what's important to note is that while we might think 70% is a good result, it means that a third of the people who responded were unhappy with the meals or with some aspect of the dining experience. That's a pretty significant number. Also, should we be targeting something higher? Should we be reaching for an 85 or 90% satisfaction rate?
Or
Shouldn't
100.
shouldn't we? Shouldn't we be striving for something more than 70%? And I think that the most important thing to remember is when you look at the residents' words, as Melissa pointed out, yeah, it says 70%, but it's like, well, I enjoy most meals, or the menu is acceptable. These are not really very complimentary comments to make. So even if you registered that you were satisfied with your meals, if you follow that up with the menu's acceptable, I'm not so sure that's a really hearty pass.
Thanks,
So,
Gail. That's a great transition to our next slide. And what became apparent very early on when we were examining the survey data was the contradictory nature of resident responses. So because we had people responding yes or no, even under those satisfied responses, many residents were including comments that implied more of a mixed or negative experience. So really suggesting more of a yes, but, or a, so not a true enthusiastic yes. There was maybe a little hesitation or, so we're going to talk a little bit about this. And our resident working group who developed the survey, we've had some time to reflect on several months now to reflect on the survey data that came in. And of course, we're thinking, oh, we should have asked this question, or maybe we could have, maybe next time we would include some more detailed questions on other aspects. But while we thought we were well-intended, I think we were well-intended that we wanted to simplify the survey by saying yes or asking residents to say yes or no. Perhaps if we had offered more of that mid-ground option, that there would be maybe more or sometimes satisfied or mid-range. Any additional thoughts on that, or kind of our approach to the survey, lessons learned?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because if you simply have a yes, no, people are afraid to say no because they think that means no meal at any time has ever made me happy. But they say, but they can give a qualified yes, but maybe we should be responding with a no, but. No, I'm not generally happy, but there's room for improvement. Yes. So, it's all in how you choose to fill out the survey. But I think that the most telling part, again, is the resident personal comments that they add. Yeah. The yes, but part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So we wanted to share a few more of the emerging themes on this we were reading between the lines when we were looking at the satisfaction. We wanted to take a balanced approach, recognizing that some residents are indeed very happy, and because food is so personal, it's not a one size fits all. Largely through the OARC channels, we hear more of when there's challenges arising. But so we wanted to dig into the comments that accompanied these satisfied and dissatisfied categories of responses. So when we looked at it, it seemed that sometimes residents feel their personal and cultural preferences are accommodated. Sometimes they feel they're getting timely support and assistance. Sometimes food is served at the correct temperatures. Sometimes they feel their councils can influence change. But some of the other comments that came through were a bit disheartening to read because there was themes of acceptance and apathy, or it is what it is, or I don't feel like if I speak up, anything changes. So it was important for us to receive that feedback so that we can continue to prioritize changes and improvements in this area and empower people to continue to not to give up, that there are some strategies that might help to move that dial forward. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts or reactions from this group here?
I just don't like the sometimes. No, I don't. I mean, because it's not a yes or no. It's not even a yes, but it's just sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And even amongst the resident group on this screen, I think you all have different experiences with food, and
Mhm.
some on the whole are quite happy, and others are maybe can identify with this sometimes category or the more the dissatisfied camp. But that's why we're talking about it. And
Well, we can find ways in which we could suggest to the food committees
Mhm.
how the food is to be used, prepared, uh, and especially for those who have allergies and other food related complications.
Mhm.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you, Laverne. I know we're going to we're talking a little bit more about resident councils later, but I'm glad that you're keeping that top of mind. So when we examined the data, again, we were looking for themes coming out of the comments that we received throughout the survey. And we were able to kind of identify where some of the greatest dissatisfaction is coming from. And that is rooted in meal quality, largely. Temperatures, textures, inconsistent ingredients, inadequate variety. So some residents found the menus to be repetitive. Some residents were frustrated that they felt their personal preferences couldn't always be accommodated, largely in part due to limited resources in the home, whether that be staffing or food.
And the way the food is cooked, I think is a huge issue.
Yeah.
And
preparation.
my biggest comment was, if you're going to say that I'm getting a fruit platter, don't give me canned fruit.
Yeah, so we're picking up on the visual here. We do have a few visuals throughout our presentation, and we're going to talk about why that matters from a resident perspective a bit later. But definitely, people get excited about the prospect of fresh fruit, and then if there's a pureed fruit or stewed fruit, or in this case a fruit cup, it can be discouraging for people, for sure. The residents were also picking up on the residents are very observant in the dining rooms, and the repercussions are felt when homes are operating with staffing shortages, or they see how stretched their their team members are, and that translates often to rushed meals, courses coming in quick succession without being able to kind of pause and enjoy the experience. And residents observing their peers who might need a little help, waiting, and maybe some food's getting cold before someone's available to help. So residents are picking up on the fact that staffing in the dining room is not optimal. This next slide captures some more of the resident perceptions. And again, it really points to that disconnect that even while menus are reviewed to make sure that they are hitting nutritional targets and they're balanced, and but the residents aren't always feeling that the menus and the options provided are meeting their needs and preferences. So that's kind of at the heart of this. So these are the comments or themes that we pulled out. I won't speak to all of them, but I think we just heard from Laverne about the that many residents are living with medical needs or therapeutic diet needs that may not be, residents feel aren't being adequately supported through the menu offerings. So that's 27% of residents that had comments with that. 21% of residents are calling for fresher food options, fewer frozen or canned options. That kind of goes hand in hand with the 24% of residents who feel that the meals aren't supporting their needs, their health needs, and that they are due to the reliance on processed foods. The other one I really wanted, again, the apathy piece there, the 9%, many residents expressing that there's little point in asking for changes, nothing ever changes. The one that really shook this group, I'm going to say to the core, but it was really learning that residents are supplementing their meals was something that was, I'd always heard of, residents maybe having a loved one bring in some fruit or a favorite snack periodically, but there were a number of comments that suggested, and even subsequent conversations I've had with residents, opened my eyes to the fact that many residents are relying on outside sources to supplement or in some cases replace meals. So 9% of residents who responded said they supplement meals themselves by bringing in food. So we did actually, just to make our webinar today a bit more interactive, we wanted to launch a poll tapping into this question specifically about supplementing. So we were wondering, for those who are able to fill out a poll, the poll question, which I think should be launching on your screens shortly, we'd like to know, do you, or perhaps if you're viewing or you're participating today in a small group, is there someone in your group who is buying or bringing in food to supplement or replace meals or snacks?
Why can't the host and panelists vote?
Because we already have.
Yeah, but so did everybody else. I'm just saying it would be nice if we could.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't work for me.
Okay. So I think responses are still coming in. I know sometimes if you're doing group viewing, it might be hard to access your keyboard to lock in a response, but I am seeing the responses that are suggesting that 62% in the audience, or that's climbing, are saying yes, they do supplement.
62. Wow.
62%.
Wow.
That's about 34 of 35. Okay, the numbers are still going up, but I think we'll close that. Gives us a sense that yes, this is happening, and then we'll follow up with a secondary poll. Because we'd like to know, for those who did answer yes, how are you doing this? Are you purchasing your own groceries? We know many residents, including a few of those in our group today, are purchasing their own groceries. You might have a small bar fridge. Are you relying, or do friends and family occasionally drop in and bring food items? Are you utilizing meal delivery services? I was just speaking to a gentleman last week who said he was quite shocked to see how many peers are using Skip the Dishes or Uber Eats or calling restaurants directly to bring in a food if they see the two choices. Not for me. So I think we can share results. I think we've got if we can jump to the next slide. I'm not sure if that's launched.
Sorry, Melissa, I'm just having a bit of an issue trying to launch. So
Oh, there it is.
Oh,
It's
there
up
it
now.
is.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for your patience, everybody.
Thank
I was
you.
wondering, while we're waiting for people to fill out that poll, perhaps I know some of our resident leaders had personal experiences with this, and I was wondering if anyone might like to speak to it.
I was just going to say that I sometimes I keep meats in my fridge. Yes, I have a fridge. I keep meats so that on the days when I don't particularly like options, I will simply ask for bread and make myself a sandwich.
I do the same thing. I too have a fridge. Took me 2 years to get it, but I have it. And I have Sobeys on speed dial.
Yeah.
The other thing I hear is that residents, if they are not unhappy with the meal that's being served, and they say they don't want to go out and buy food from somewhere else because they've already paid for their food for that day, and they simply go without.
Yeah, there's that too. Yeah,
Because they're not willing to spend more money, essentially paying twice for your meal.
And that's the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
we don't skip the dishes. We skip the meals.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well said, Jennifer.
Yes, very.
What I find is that a lot of times with my special diet needs, they put so much spices in that both dishes I can't have. So I end up either using a sandwich, which I've ordered, or going out and having something special because it's the only way I can survive.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing, everybody. It does seem that we've got a kind of a mixed response set here with with some, about 8% purchasing their own groceries. 38% of respondents here are relying on others to bring in some items to supplement. Not a lot of takers for the meal delivery services, but 54% are using a combination. So maybe they are in that category as well. So it's just interesting, and certainly something that we would be bringing to the attention of our ministry partners when we continue to advocate on this work. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, I think we'll just jump ahead there. Got lots of ground to cover. We probably could have a whole webinar series just talking about each question of the resident survey. So we wanted to spend some time talking about resident councils, because this was one area of the survey that I found encouraging. 73% of residents who answered our survey agreed that they felt their resident council can influence the mealtime experience. So I took a closer look at the comments associated with this question, and about 27% of the residents who provided comments reported seeing tangible changes when they spoke up or brought concerns, observations, ideas, suggestions through their council. So they saw reductions in noise, improved decor, the addition of music to enhance the ambiance, just as a result of bringing things up to the resident council. So I know many are maybe feeling discouraged that nothing ever changes, but this to me was a powerful indication that even if it's small changes being made, the resident council does have a powerful role in bringing concerns to the attention of home leadership and then working on those quality improvements.
Were any of the small changes mentioned by the residents saying that the food was improving?
So this is the next question is all about menus. So 75% of residents agreed that their resident council can influence menus. And our group felt it was important to remind those in the audience that having residents providing feedback and being involved on decision making about meals and snacks, that's part of the regulations or the long-term care legislation. So the rules that your home must follow. So you're likely wondering, why do we talk about menus at resident council? Because the ministry expects that that dialogue is happening. So it's not just that new menus are being launched. There should be some consultation happening for a review of the menu. I love hearing when food managers are working with the council and doing taste testing programs. If we're going to test new recipes, or maybe we want to bring in a new tortiere or something special, and trying a few things, trying a few new recipes, or even residents sharing personal recipes, which we know is happening in homes. So long-term care homes must review menus with the council, and the menus include meals and snacks. And so this is important that it's happening. I know we'd like to see this, so the powers kind of expanded a little bit more. I know, Gail, you had mentioned that you'd like to see it more meaningful changes happening. And some of the comments did indicate, maybe we can influence the soup or a new product, but maybe it's not, residents would like to see more robust scope of influence.
Well,
Yeah, that's right.
But you have to make the comment. If you don't comment, they won't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, resident councils currently have to sign off on the menu after it's been reviewed with the resident council. They have to sign off to say they've seen the menu, but it has no power with that. It doesn't say I'm approving the menu. It just says I've reviewed it. And I think that we should be using a more powerful influence on that aspect. I think we should have the ability to approve or deny a proposed menu.
But we can approve or deny, can't we? Can't we deny?
We can't approve. We can only review, according to the ministry documentation. Resident councils are only authorized to review the menus.
Well,
I think there are homes that are taking additional steps to make that review more meaningful. And so it's not just, oh, we need this signed right away. You know, it's more, it can be
Here
maybe
in
over
Brockville,
a series of meetings. Pardon me, Liber?
here in Brockville, we had a series of meetings going through each meeting was looking at 1 week only. And we went through the menu, we approved, and certain parts and other parts we didn't approve. And we have had a better cooperation than ever before. And it's working
That's great.
because as they put the menu into the computer on their system, it will generate what's needed and will spit out the costs of each item. And then we go looking at our suppliers and finding out which supplier is the best for the item needed.
That's fantastic that that level of detail is being shared with the resident council. I think that transparency in the process, it can be really powerful if residents kind of know how menus are designed in the different stages. So I know we'll have a little bit more time for commentary on this later, but I just wanted to skip ahead to the next slide. Whoops. Oh dear.
The big comment.
Yeah. So there were two areas where there was overwhelming resident support. And this really aligned with the results of the Ontario Seniors Nutrition and Advocacy Group, who surveyed long-term care homes and dietary teams. Overwhelmingly, residents support or feel there needs to be increased funding for two different areas. Number one was they'd like to see increased staffing, more dedicated dietary team members to support the dining experience. This could go a very long way. It's not just about boosting budgets, which we'll touch on next. But was interesting, 39% of residents who responded to the survey directly and provided comments, directly identified a clear need for more food service staff, explicitly calling for additional hires, and 16% emphasized that they would like to see clear role separation. Let's let the personal support workers and nurses focus on the care aspects, and then have more dedicated dietary team members to focus on taking food orders, delivering food, letting them kind of own the food process, so that the residents who need timely assistance, like they have a caregiver available there who isn't kind of multitasking in the dining room, for example. So the 24% of residents said that staff are rushed, overworked, and this can limit their mealtime experience, or it can be detrimental. Any comments from the group on the staffing side of things, or we'll jump to the funding?
Jump to funding.
Yeah.
We do
Jump to funding.
We do need more staff.
Yeah.
But
so I think there was also 81% of residents who supported having an increased food budget. Now, we've recently learned that the $13.44 was the nutritional allowance per resident per day for at the time of the survey being executed. This has recently, in this new fiscal year, been boosted up to $13.71. So about is that the right? I think that's the right stat. But 67% of the residents who answered this survey question said the budget is too low to provide quality meals. There was 53% of residents who, through their comments, emphasized the need for more fresh and nutritious foods. There's 45% who raised concerns about protein quantity and quality. And 37% noted that special diets also require more funding. This last statistic was also quite powerful, in my opinion. 24% of residents who provided those extra comments framed food quality as an issue of dignity, respect, and quality of life.
Yeah.
So it's more than just nourishing bodies. It's much more than that.
Yeah.
I would also like to point out that although although we've recently heard about the 2% increase to 1371, the current increase in food costs is between 4 and 6%. So with even given the 2% increase, we're still behind the inflation cost of rising food costs. So what does that mean? What is the implication on our menus? Are we going to get less than we've been getting now? Are the new menus going to be less because we're 4% below the forecasted increases of food costs?
And I have many times before challenged anybody in the ministry to go out and spend $13.71 during a day for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 3 snacks. You can't do it unless you're eating gum.
But they will go out. But they will go out and spend that on Starbucks lattes.
Yeah, yeah.
They could buy 2.
Yeah, but we can't
That's
live on Starbucks for a day with
that's
2
the whole
coffees.
point.
No. Yeah, yeah.
But also, they're not providing enough money to retain good cooks.
Yeah.
I don't know where they're getting their cooks. I have my suspicions.
Mm-hmm.
And also, to increase, the dietary team members.
Mm-hmm.
Even one extra pair of hands would make a huge difference.
Yeah.
In every meal.
Yeah.
So we've already had lots of great dialogue kind of peppered throughout our presentation so far. We wanted to have a few more minutes just hearing directly from our resident panelists about what changes, both at that government or ministry level and at your long-term care home level, do you think could lead to some tangible improvements? So we already heard about need to increase those resources for both staffing and the budget itself, which we know has its limitations. Would anyone like to offer some further comments?
I'd like to comment that one of the problems is that the ministry has no idea what the food is like in a home. We've asked them to come to lunch and dinner, nothing. So they're guessing based on what everybody's told them, everybody not being residents, that we're doing fine and we're having great food. Well, no, they don't know. They haven't been there, done that.
And we have to address the elephant in the room, and that is the 25 to 30% that's currently taken from our budget to buy vitamins and supplements. Yep. Those are medicinal issues and should be addressed accordingly.
That's huge.
Yeah, yes. I'm not sure. I know in past webinars we have highlighted that. Many residents don't know that the food budget is not just covering the ingredients themselves. There's a lot of kind of not hidden, I guess, hidden costs, you could say. And you named a few of them there: vitamins, nutritional supplements, thickeners,
right.
Those kind of things. And then once you kind of factor in tariffs and other the cost of food too, there's not. I think our friends at OSNAC said really we're looking at close to $9.50, maybe $10
right.
to actually put towards those food ingredients. So we know that is part of our ongoing advocacy with ministry, and OARC does meet with ministry on a bi-monthly basis. And actually just at the end of this month on the 25th, we will be presenting some of our food data and some of our calls to action. And this is one of our recommendations, that if we could crack open that food budget and maybe reallocate some of those things like supplements, that maybe there could be more money going towards the ingredients. That could be maybe better fresh fruit, better cuts of meat, that kind of thing. So that's one area. Thank you. And any other thoughts on kind of changes at the ministry level, or can we jump into some of the home level suggestions?
We really don't know what these tariffs and the transportation costs are going to be going like. Mm-hmm. And we've got to have a hedge on that for the food, let alone the quality of food has to be improved. Mm-hmm. So we have to make sure that the quality of the food is good and not substandard.
A little more
You could also,
transparency.
you could also add in climate change.
Yeah, Anne hit the nail on the head just a moment ago. OARC has also asked, we want to learn more about the annual review process. What formula is being followed? Who's consulted? When this year it's a 2% boost in the food budget. We'd love to learn a little bit more about the process that goes on behind the scenes to come up with that annual review. And of course, there's a whole working in partnership with OSNAC. There's a whole long list of ways, maybe tariff relief and other programs that could translate to positive, tangible changes. So let's maybe switch gears and look at some of this group had some great suggestions for changes at the long-term care home level. I know one of the concerns was sometimes the fact that there was clinical treatments or things happening in the dining rooms that can be a little unsettling. I think Jennifer, you had something to share on that.
Yeah. They take blood pressure, they take temperatures, and they ask us, I don't know how anyone else feels about this. You've heard me say it before. They will come up and they will ask in the dining room, in front of people, have you had a bowel movement today?
Mm.
This doesn't do much for the ambience.
No.
Or your dignity.
Yeah. It's not a hospital, folks. It's a dining room.
It is a dining room. You shouldn't be giving medications. You shouldn't be
No.
giving insulin injections. You shouldn't be giving nose sprays or eye drops.
Or asking invasive questions.
It's just not appropriate at a dining table.
Correct.
One solution that I think, or that was suggested by, I think it was Jennifer, when we actually presented this information at a conference a few weeks back, we talked about how residents are often part of the long-term care home orientation for new team members, talking about resident rights, but how powerful it could be if residents were called upon to help train those working in the dining rooms, and because that you would bring these things to light that people
and the kitchen.
Yeah, I think also there's a challenge. We talked about, the challenge of hiring more cooks or having enough money to attract cooks that will stay. But I think we have, yes, that are real cooks. But I think also, especially in the more urban areas, that a lot of our cooks are not Canadian. And so they don't know about our culture or cuisine. So they have no idea what a meal is supposed to look like or taste like.
Yeah.
So I think that on an individual home basis, you have to be prepared to then provide detailed cooking instructions along with probably some supplementary training, especially now that the ministry has relinquished the requirement to have background before we hire these people. They no longer have to have a culinary background to be hired as kitchen staff.
I know that's an important point, Gail, and I know that's part of the work that's happening behind the scenes with OSNAC and our friends at the Ontario Centres for Learning, Research and Innovation. There's a whole series, training modules to help support those from maybe outside the long-term care sector to learn. And I know we're constantly supporting and infusing resident perspective into those training modules. So that work will continue ahead. I know I'm mindful of the time. It's easy how an hour can fly when you're talking about something you're passionate about. I wanted to there was a few things about how food is named, things that are on your menu. I know a few of you had, and this I thought, would be an important conversation to have between residents and the dietary teams, those creating the menus. Can you offer some insights around?
It's the problem is that if you say that you're having a pork chop and they show you something that's breaded, it's first of all, it's not a pork chop. And secondly, it's something that's breaded. It's not what's on the menu. And what's on the menu is what I said I agreed to. So
and I'd like to add a little story here. My husband was a foodie, and his favorite dessert was creme brulee.
Mm.
And whenever he saw that on the menu, his eyes would light up. And then I would wait for the plate to land in front of him. And it was yet another iteration of, what is it? Pudding.
Well,
Instant
Yes.
let me
butterscotch
guess. I was
instant
going to
pudding.
say,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Pudding.
vanilla pudding.
I would have to watch his face fall. He
Yeah,
would be so disappointed.
yeah. It's really important to call it what it is. I
Yeah.
mean,
It is.
the picture on your screen right now, shows a baked potato. And if what you're imagining is the top picture, what lands on your plate is the bottom picture. How appetizing is that? Who
And
wants
what
to
is
eat?
it?
Who wants to eat the
What,
one on the bottom?
And
what is it?
the same with don't say fresh fruit if you're serving me canned.
No, but we're expected. That's what we're expected to eat
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well,
as
and
a
you know
baked
what? If
potato.
they said we're going to serve a rotten potato tonight, I would understand that and not order it.
And not order it. Yeah,
But they
exactly.
don't say that on the menu. They say you're going to have a great potato tonight.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I had they have the steak and onion, liver and onion pot pie. Well, it's a meat pie with liver and onion in it. That's not
Oh,
a pot pie when you're thinking of pot pie.
Yeah.
Mm.
False
So,
advertising.
so I see
yeah,
a
it is.
real opportunity here to build those relationships with the dietary teams who are building the menus, the naming. I know Anne said call it what it is, even if
Yeah.
you have to simplify.
Yeah.
And I think people that could make a difference. I just wanted to mention also this group did speak about plating the food. That's one thing that doesn't cost anything, but just
No.
the care taken to plate the food. Because people eat with their eyes, and I know that's really how the food is presented is just as important as how it tastes, as I've heard from our residents here.
And if you give a show plate, make sure that the plate that comes to you is exactly the same.
Yeah. Yes.
In your dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying that they shouldn't be showing something that you're not going to get.
That's
False
misleading advertising.
Yeah.
So I'm going to quickly summarize this slide, and I've mentioned it that we do work in partnership with different groups in long-term care sector to move changes forward. So everything we've talked today, we've been involved in developing resources, press conference presentations, letter writing campaigns, meeting with ministry partners. So the work is ongoing, and we're encouraged by that we do have the ear of ministry. They are listening. They want to hear. They want to hear from residents what we can do together to make things better.
Mm-hmm.
And I just before we kind of get to our last slide here, it's when we're talking about food budget, it's easy just to get focused on the dollars and cents, but it's important to remind everyone involved that it's the human element, the relational aspect of dining. It's an experience. The late Devorah Greenspan, who was kind of a OARC icon and a treasured member of our organization, felt like food was so much more than the food on the plate. It's about the overall experience and the connection with others. So there's so many, it's so layered, and it starts with resident and team member connections, flexibility and choice, not just hearing what residents have to say, but listening and acting upon changes. Small improvements matter. So we just wanted to leave, and maybe for those who want to continue the conversation, join the OARC resident forum tomorrow. I'm sure food will be on the docket of hot topics.
Always is.
But we will share our slides, as I know we didn't get to cover every aspect, but and work with your resident council, work with your teams. Hopefully there's one or two takeaways from today's webinar that you can implement. Start small, maybe just one or two quality areas.
Okay, I've got to go. Sorry, but I want to thank everybody for coming. And come again. We'll have it again. I'm sure this is not the last time we're talking about food.
I would also like to just challenge everyone that when you're filling out surveys for food, you know, the results are used to create improvements in your home and to measure how well they're doing. And so, first of all, please take the time to fill them out. But more importantly, when you're filling them out, be honest, because it's the only way we're going to get a true picture of what's going on and how you, as residents, feel about the food quality. And if we have any food services people on the webinar today, they're looking for that feedback as well. They're not taking it as criticism, they're taking it as suggestions for improvement. So it's really important that we all fill those things out honestly.
Thank you. And a big shout out to the dietary managers who've joined us today. I know our residents we have a lot of residents in the audience, but the supportive partners who've shown up shows that you're committed to working with residents on solutions. Along with the recording, we did co-develop a resource with family councils and the OSNAC group about how to work in partnership, how teams and councils can work together. So we'll continue to develop responsive tools, resources, education, and please stay connected with us. Thank you so much for spending the last hour with us, and thank you to our resident panelists for sharing your lived experience and your passion to advance this conversation. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Don't
Thank you.
think that we are trying to help you in a positive way. You gave you more of your better experience in a long-term resident home. And thank you for participating in this webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly, everybody.
Bye.
Stay in touch.